What's up, everybody? I hope everyone's having a good day. I hope everyone's taking care of themselves and finding time to get into the studio and get creative on this Sunday. Again, we're going to jump right into it today. We are working on some new sounds for hopefully a pretty tight little theme song that we might be able to use. Let's go ahead and give it a listen and see where we landed the other day here. It sounds really good so far. What I'm just noticing, just to give myself a little feedback here, let's turn this down a little bit. Oh, can't really turn it down, can we? If I had some groups set up, we could turn it down a touch. But yeah, in terms of where it's at so far, it sounds really good. I guess the main feedback I kind of have is that the frequencies really are all over the place. If you can see, once I jack it back up here, you're gonna notice that, you know, the frequencies are really wild, especially here on the low end. It's really, really crazy. Below 32 hertz, right down there at 16 hertz, and it's like there's not very many speakers that can even reproduce those frequencies, much less they don't really need to be in a modern mix as heavily. So what we're gonna do today is just jump right in, use the methods that we've been learning about in some of the previous episodes, and deploy some SSL style mixing to the couple of elements that we have here. See if we can make them play a little bit more nicely with one another. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna jump right in, and I'm gonna start with a little bit of just kind of bus level compression. So first off, I want to get we'll do this part later. Okay, so what we're gonna do first is basically set up the two effects that we want to see inside of Pro Tools. We're going to set those up on our drum aux and our bass guitars aux. So at the bus level, if you will, not necessarily on each individual channel yet. So that's how I like to do it. I like to go from the top down. And that's, you know, you hear people talk about different ways to do it. You can, you know, go top-down method. You can go from the bottom up, or from an individual, say, I want to dig right into the kick drum and start messing with stuff. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. There's no wrong way to do it. This is how I've gotten used to doing it, just to apply some quick moves here to really make the drums and the bass play nicely together. So we're going to start by assigning the groups here. We'll call this drums. We'll call this bass guitars. Drums. And we'll go ahead and go to assign. And we're on the drums, so we want to see that there. And then on the bass, we want to see that there. So we can jump into bucket view at any point in time and see them. I'll tell you what, though, for the time being, I'll go ahead and assign both into the same bucket, just so I can kind of mess with both of them in the same sort of bucket view, if you will. So we can look at the input for both, we can look at the EQ for both, the dynamics for both. I've already got a home here for bass guitars to be kind of split out and be separate from the drums, but for now, just on this one bucket view, I kind of want to see everything together. So let's take another listen and see if we can dial in just some general EQ and compression that make these two play nicely together. So let's start hearing some sounds. I'm not going to mess with the input section for starters. I am going to make, actually I am. So the input section I'm going to use, what I really meant was I'm not going to mess with the line and mic levels. I am going to jump in and mess with the filters though right away. So on the drum, that's a good sign, people. Don't let that deter you, all right? So I'm going to jump right in and start taking away some of that really crazy low end. So you can already hear that tighten up the drums quite a bit. I don't want to take off too much of the low end on the drums, but I do want to take away more of it on the bass guitar. I want the bass guitars to be fully out of the way of the drums, fully out of the way of the kick and the low end, low end of the snare. And what we were hearing a second ago, and it already sounds a lot better just with those two moves. What we were hearing a second ago was the bass was completely swallowing everything in the mix. Every time the bass guitar would come up, it would swallow the drums, you would lose the snare, you would lose the kick drum, all of that stuff. That's not happening anymore because we're taking away up to about 40 or so on the drums, just getting rid of a lot of that super low end that just muds everything up, and then going all the way to 100. And feel free to play with this to your heart's content. We still want some of that crunchy mid-range to be there. We don't want to completely destroy the low end. So right around there is still pretty sweet. I still get some pretty good, pretty nice low end coming through the headphones. Still have, yes, and you can still detect everything nicely because we have, again, two different kinds of bass, a clean bass and a dirty bass. So really good so far. Let's look at the output section and see how both of these are slamming. They both look fantastic. So if we wanted to even, we could drive the, let's look at these side by side, and we could actually use our trick that we learned about on a previous episode to drive the output of the bass guitars a touch. So let's do that. Let's tuck the output a little bit and let's kick this up. Sounds great. Maybe just a little bit. I mean, not... Let's go to the channel view on the bass guitar. I want to kind of A/B this a little bit. So if we jump over to B, or no, that's actually the copy to B, but if we jump, what I was going to say, if we jump over to B and load full reset. Okay, so there we go. Full reset, filters are reset, output stage is reset. Let's A/B this. So here's A. All right, coming up here is B. It's kind of hard for me to tell the difference. Actually, I feel like that might be a good kind of section to hear. Where was that? Let's hear that. was actually just listening for how that reacts. I actually kind of like the way that reacts. If you'll listen for the low end, and you might need some good headphones kind of to hear this. I'm proud of myself that I can hear this a little bit. If we listen to A, it distorts the low end. When I hit that E note again, I'm overloading the DI a little bit, and so it's an overloaded note if you really listen for it. And you hear it overloading and distorting a little bit as it hits this mic stage and this output stage. I mean, you can see the outputs in the red here. In Pro Tools, guys, we're nowhere close to the red. We have so much headroom, it's not even funny. Now, if I go back over to B, when you hear that overloaded E note, it just gets bigger. You know, it doesn't really overload or distort anything. It just kind of gets a little louder. It gets a little bigger. And there's something to be said about that too. That's a pretty cool sound, and I may want to blend that back in at some point. But for now, I really kind of like the A, the way it distorts that. And you can still feel a little of that low end energy, but it's tamed it by a little bit. It's rounded it by a little bit. It's distorting it. Now we can bring the volume back up on this to taste. Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's nice. It's kind of a good blend of the two. All right, so we won't obsess over that more than we already have. That's, so far, really all we've done, guys, is a little EQ of the super low end. A little EQ of the super low end, a little EQ, no, not EQ, a little drive, if you will, a little distortion, a little harmonics, using the SSL kind of console secret weapon to drive the input stage by, say, 20, and then ride the output stage by, say, 10, you know, and to taste, kind of you can do with that what you will depending on content. But I really like the way that sounds on the bass, and already this is coming through very, very well. So let's take a look at actually how this looks, and I want you guys to kind of understand, you know, some of the reason I'm doing this if you guys are new to mixing, and I'm learning a lot about this myself, so it's really helpful for me to kind of review this in an educational sort of format so that I can reinforce this for myself. But when we listen back to this now, there's a lot of low-end energy, and it's still coming through pretty heavy. When that bass kicks up. But when we turn these off, you hear how much more of it is there. And also, we fully lose that character on the bass, that presence that we had on the bass. We fully lose that. And it's just, you know, it's not as in your face as it was, and that's because it's competing, guys. The bass and the kick drum and the low kind of body of the snare drum and some of those really, really cool sounds in the drums are competing with the bass frequency wise. And so that's what we're trying to do, is get them out of each other's way a little bit. And that's the purpose of those EQ moves, is I want to preserve a lot of the low energy on the drums. I want to keep some of it on the bass, but not as much as the drums. So if we, again, digging into where I set these and why I set these in these kind of ranges, I'm only digging off about 40, and maybe you could argue maybe I could take away a little more of that. So maybe we could go to 50. But again, I'm taking more of it away from the bass. So I want the kick to exist in the real low energy. I want the bass to exist in the low you know, mids and upper mids energy, so you can still detect it, and it's got some distortion and harmonics and other stuff happening. So again, this is before we applied any changes. When we walked into the room today, this is how it sounded. And on these big sections, listen how the bass just swallows everything in the mix. Coming up right here, and those things happening in the drum that were really interesting, they get buried in the bass, which is super cool, but we want to get them out of each other's way. So we apply a little filtering, apply a little distortion. And maybe we might be able to even come down on volume. All right, here we go. Now it's going to get a little bit real. Let's go ahead and assign these drums in the order they are to appear. And yeah, get that assigned to bass. You know what? For now, we just got drums and bass for right now. So for right now, we can just have them all in the same bucket. That'll make things easy when looking at the bucket view. We won't have to flip-flop between the two sides. So, all right. That looks great so far. Let's listen to what we got. Man alive, I won't keep all that. Maybe I should. Oh, keep a lot of it though. Yeah. Oh, it sounds great. You can hear it. You can hear the low end come through. Oh, that's beautiful. And you can hear it come. So what you can hear, which you couldn't hear before, and I'll A/B this by just basically taking the plug-in off of all these channels, but you can hear the low end of the kick drum coming through the mix even when the bass guitar is happening. So yes, we've established we can hear the kick drum right in the pocket of where we need it. We can still hear the bass, so it's still musical. We can still hear the low end thud of the bass, and it hasn't gone anywhere. All we've done is just move it out of each other's way a little bit. So we've taken a lot of the low energy off, below 40 or so hertz. So none of it really is coming through as hard as it was. This isn't taking it completely away. We could go A/B this and look at this. There's still a lot of it coming through, but just not nearly as much. So we could get more aggressive with the filtering as well. We still have room to clean it up a little bit if we wanted, but it already sounds a lot better than it did. Ugh, that's fantastic. Sounds a lot better. So let's A/B the two by replaying that where we started. So I'm going, for you newbies out there, Command, Option, Shift, should be Command, Alt, Shift, or similar on a Windows. I'm pretty sure, but I don't know that for certain. But anyway, here's where we started. I had this turned up. I mean, tons of low energy happening. It sounds great, you know, but the problem is that it winds up, especially later on in these parts, it's kind of tough to hear it at the beginning, but in these parts where the bass gets a little more thick, it's happening, it's more present. In other words, it's happening more and more. It swallows up more and more of the drums, and you can notice it because when more and more of the drums kind of play over it. Over here especially. You hear those drums just disappear? I mean, it's like someone's turning the drums down every time someone turns the bass up, and that's not what I want. I want them to be out of the way of one another and still work together. They're still working on the same mission, which is this song, you know? So, move them out of each other's way. And that wasn't a proper A/B because I just turned it on. So I actually need to tuck that volume back down, and you'll really hear it. So again, here's A before. When we walked in the room, this is how it sounded. All right, and then after our loving SSL mix, here's where we're at. I think all of these drums could stand a little bit of compression. So let's maybe make a little bit of moves there as well. And that'll just make everything sound dramatically better. All we've done is a little bit of EQ. And that sound is way too loud. So So I'm glad we tucked that back down just in a nick of time. All right, so let's jump back into, and now that we have plenty of these open right now, let's get busy. not much talking going on, just instinct. I wanted to give the snares a little bit more body, come down on some of those really painful upper frequencies of those snares, man. And yeah, just ultimately, I don't think the bass needs too much. You know, I put a little compression on it. I think it sounds great. What I am gonna do, and I'll probably have my son help me film again for this, is I want to get a room tone. I don't have a good room sound, and I could just put a reverb on this, right? But that wouldn't be interesting. That wouldn't be fun. So what I'm probably gonna do is pump the drums out of these speakers, set up some microphones behind me, and capture a room drum sound of these electronic drums. And that'll be an interesting thing to film and experiment with. I want some trashy room mics. I'm going to use this mic. It's a great mic, but I want to use it as a kind of compressed mono and trashy, and then some stereo kind of room sounds as well. So I'll have a couple of room tones to add to this Maschine drum kit. What I'd like to end with is a really awesome technique that for you Pro Tools guys out there, if you want to learn how to work in a similar way inside of Pro Tools to the way that people work inside of Maschine, or work inside of Ableton, or even Logic nowadays, is that's recording loops. That's basically getting inspired to take some different takes, maybe a short section, maybe the whole song, whatever you want to do, but record a number of loops in succession and then work with those loops to find some really exciting moments and then make that part of your song, instead of just doing one take and, off you go. So I tried this the other day and failed. And if you guys have ever tried this as well yourselves and found similar failure results, that is because we need to come in to preferences, which if you're on a Windows, you ought to be able to go, I learned this by watching another video as well, you ought to be able to go setup and preferences as well. And in the operation tab, we want to automatically create new playlists when loop recording, and that's gonna immediately take those recorded loops and it's gonna put them into new playlists for you, so that you don't have to, I know the keystrokes to go and create new playlists, but I'm just saying you don't want to have to remember to do that when you have an idea really quickly and you really want to record a number of takes of it, just like this. So I've got a tambourine, and I'm gonna record. I'm gonna switch the mic over to omnidirectional, and I want to record some tambourine ideas that I have, but I want to record them in loops. So I'm going to just go over a 4-bar section, and I'm going to record a number of loops. So let me set up a track here. We'll call it Tamb. And we'll give this an interesting color, but this is basically a drum sound, so it'll go up here with, it'll go in the drums category. But we'll keep this right here for now. It's not gonna go in the vocals folder, so we'll just get that straight right now. Yeah, dragging and dropping these folders and tracks and stuff, it can be a little difficult. You just got to aim right. That's what you got to do. But I'm going to choose, let's pop this open. I'm going to actually choose this mic, and I'm just going to sit here and record it right here. So I'm going to go on radio silence when I do this, but I'll go ahead and mute this channel and send this. This is line 4, bus 19. Send bus 19 into this as well. And that will be good to go. You can see audio is coming through. So what I'm going to do is another shortcut, which is enable loop record. There's a few ways to do this. You can right-click, maybe right-click will work, and hit loop. You can also go Option L. Should be Alt L if you're on a Windows, but that's what you want to do to record a loop. Now I'm going to go ahead and give myself a couple of bars count in. So I'm just gonna listen to the beat a couple of times, and then I'm gonna go ahead and record a loop. If he can aim, that's the question. So we're gonna go 4 bars. Let's get that length precise. We're in slip mode. No wonder, people. Why didn't somebody tell me I was in slip mode? Fudge. All right, 4-bar loop. Let's see if we remember how to use pre-roll. I'd like to give myself a 4-bar pre-roll. All right, great. So now we're gonna get a little 4-bar pre-roll, and then we're gonna loop record over those bars. So let's go ahead and get into our space here. And I'm gonna grab a pillow, which is gonna help me silence the tambourine whenever I don't want you to hear it. All right, so now we're gonna go on radio silence and get this thing recorded. So it looks like we're running hot with that recording. So let's take the pre-roll off. Let's disable input monitor. I'm just getting creative, guys, just letting time go. But that's how it goes sometimes. You feel timeless, you feel motivated, you feel energized by coming in and putting in some cool sounds on a Sunday. Until next time.